Hello, everyone. I am Gajendra Sharma from Kathmandu University. I'm happy to join and talk in 22nd AAC International Meeting. My topic of talk is contribution of information and communication technology for climatic crisis response and effective disaster management. And my topic of presentation includes some major subtopics. For example, it starts from introduction, then disaster management and risk identification, risk management applications, ICT for disaster risk reduction, and finally, conclusion. So first of all, let's start from introduction. This figure or the regional distribution of natural disasters in between 2010 to 2020. And from this chart, we can see that Asian regions are mostly affected with natural disasters. For example, 42% in Asian regions, 21% in Africa, 20% in America, 14% in European regions, and Oceania 3%. So Asian regions are more prone to natural disasters and different types of natural and man-made risk. And disaster management is one of the very widely studied topic. It generally includes mitigation and prevention, preparedness, response, as well as recovery. And disaster management is a very broad topic. It generally includes risk identification, knowledge management, risk management applications, preparedness and emergency management, and finally, government support. Risk identification is another important component. It comprises monitoring of different types of vulnerabilities, early warnings for weather or climate related disasters, adaptation measures, vulnerability assessment, and hazard analysis. Early warning systems are equally important during disasters. In this case, observational data are needed for the study of climate variability and use of warnings for climate related disasters issued from weeks to seasons in advance if adequate climate predictions are available. And adaptation measures are another important components that is basically required for collaboration between different stakeholders for minimizing disasters. It includes planning, data and information pooling, improved observation systems that is equally important for policymakers or government organizations. And similarly, vulnerability assessment is equally required during disasters. It indicates the linkage between climate and disaster databases to access different vulnerabilities that encounter frequently in different parts of the world. Similarly, hazard analysis is equally critical issue. So it can be used as a tool for risk communication. So that is important to policymakers and communities. Hazard maps are essential to prepare evacuation efficiently and to allow authorities to adjust land use and city planning. And there are different risk management applications. So that can be used to generate a concept of integrated flood management across different sectors, mitigate flood related disasters, and to develop community approaches to flood management. Agriculture meteorological program is generally studied in disaster management. It provides guidance on the development of support systems for sustainable land management and agroclimatic zoning with the active participation of the Commission for Agriculture Meteorology. Similarly, preparedness and emergency management is very crucial. It generally includes timely and accurate forecast and warning of natural hazards, optimal response to natural disasters that requires effective coordination and cooperation between response agencies. Government support is equally important to minimize the disaster risk. Usually, the different risk created through climatic changes. It helps to minimize risk management, and in this case, political commitment is crucial to allocate the necessary resources that is supportive to different citizens that may be affected by different types of vulnerabilities. International framework is crucial for developing countries. It helps to support natural disaster reduction. So that is both an important issue of sustainable development and a matter of environmental justice that is required for international solidarity. A need for an integrated approach is usually significant in national and regional levels, as well as in international levels. For example, NGOs, INGOs, capacity building and transfer of technology from one location to another location. And my second topic of presentation is significance of ICTs for disaster risk reduction and preparedness. And this figure is very helpful to understand ICTs used in disaster risk management. For example, disaster occurs. After then, we have to analyze the damage, policy planning and countermeasures, recovery, damage deterrence measures, damage mitigation measures, prediction and early warning. So ICTs are equally significant for disaster risk reduction as well as preparedness. And this figure again shows the different examples of ICT applications. For example, in mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. And in this case, we can use different technologies. So that may be GIS sensing technologies, early warning systems, emergency equipment, and systems to minimize the disaster risk. Again, this figure helps to understand the entire applications of ICTs during disaster. For example, we have disaster management headquarters. It has connection and interlink with different public organizations. For example, public service vehicles, fire division headquarters, government authority, hospitals, broadcasting centers, and so on. So an entire ICT system is very helpful during disaster and post disaster as well to manage entire activities more efficiently and effectively. And there are different uses of ICTs in disaster management. For example, data collection, recording, analysis, information management, dissemination, communications, and decision making. And we have different preparedness and mitigation phases that ICT can have implementations. For example, in this case, ICT can be used for developing national emergency plan, development of standard operating procedure, making different types of plans, map hazards, recording, risk assessment, and awareness creation. Similarly, response phase. In this phase also, ICTs may have different implementations on ensuring the availability of communication links, undertaking damage and needs assessment, enabling call centers, awareness, and updating different types of data. And for recovery phase, we can use ICTs for damage and risk assessment, infrastructure reconstruction, risk assessment, communication, and to establish resilient ICT infrastructures. And we can use different types of ICT tools for emergency management, for example, satellite phones, satellite broadcast terminals, very small aperture terminals or VSATs, mobile networks, and radio networks. So different types of ICT system can be used during disaster management. And we have to make an effective guidelines to minimize such kind of vulnerabilities globally. For example, policies, manuals, plans, specifications, process, and guidelines. In this case, ICTs may play a very crucial role. And from this talk, we can have different lessons and recommendations to government and higher authorities. For example, warning systems should be selected in accordance with the local ICT network. Warning dissemination should be redundant. Periodic education and training is required in every level. Improve ICT governments and develop programs of ICT to enhance human capacity. And finally, the conclusion from this talk is that developing ICT for disaster risk management, which are well adapted to local context and adjustable to a changing world, will be essential to improve disaster preparedness and resilience. Similarly, rapid urbanization, technological development, and climate change are also changing the nature and scope of disaster risk management. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and namaste from Kathmandu University, Nepal. Thank you and goodbye.